Look at this, it's a nice picture of this.
Our tale of Dracula. To celebrate 125 years since the publication of the novel Dracula by Bram Stoker.
Do you know how many I had? 8 back from the back railway. Because, do you know what I did with them?
Alright.
Yeah.
Ow!
Come.
Time to watch you.
The kids were 2 hours, isn't it?
No, 3 minutes or a movie. It wasn't me 3 hours, Lily.
Behave in any way suspiciously. Drive a stake through their heart and cut off their head.
Oh, you're here. I thought so. I thought I could hear you, smell you. I suppose I might sense you. We still, in this modern world of ours, have a memory of those old skills that made us hunters. The greatest predators on earth, eh? Feared and loathed by all other creatures and beasts who we hunt and kill, or domesticate and enslave to our will. For centuries, humankind has dominated this earth of ours. Every day, new inventions propel us forward into a new age of greater power and control of the elements that surround us. We embrace this new age. We forget about the old and we move forward. We feel in our blood that we are leaving the past behind. We mock the old ways as outdated, inefficient, unhelpful, and unfashionable. But in the darkest recesses of our minds, we still remember. Recall what lurks in our minds, superstition or myth. We might not believe in it, but it stays with us. Every so often, we see something that reminds us that not everything can be measured, recorded, or categorized. There are some things that exist in the deepest oceans, or in the bowels of the earth, or hidden away in far-off places that defy our efforts at understanding. We call these things creatures that remain beyond our control. Instead, they provoke in us those older sensations we thought we had buried and moved on from. And we find we are still the same creatures we always were. We say we have a sixth sense about danger. We sense it is there just before it arrives. We have time to consider what to do next. Do we fight it or flee? But sometimes it creeps up on us and catches us unawares. Instead of lashing out or running as if our lives depend on it, we are frozen to the spot in terror. We are paralyzed by our own fear taking us over. Suddenly, Our bodies are not our own. Our hearts beat faster. Our limbs become heavy. Our breathing shallow. We sweat. We start to shiver and tremble. We become aware of growing colder. We feel as if death is slowly engulfing us, creeping over our body. Still, it refuses to answer our brain, begging it to do something. Instead, like a lump of clay, it is unable to do anything. We must confront our deepest fears. Powerless as once we were when we first came down from the hills, when we were the hunted, the prey, not the hunter. I speak of this from some experience. My name is Jonathan Harker. Perhaps you have heard the name, perhaps not. Some years ago, I was asked by my employers to carry documents of sale for a number of properties in England across Europe to a castle situated in Transylvania, a country I had never before heard of, and to bring them to the attention of the nobleman who lived there. His name you will, I am sure, recognize. It was Count Dracula. And from the moment I embarked on this journey, my life would change, and I would experience such horrors that no sane man could possibly tolerate without being changed forever. I still look back on that time with disbelief, for like you, I was entirely innocent of what existed beyond my own narrow view of the world. The experience of these horrors came close to destroying me completely. Even now I find it painful to recollect.
Husband, Jonathan, you were gone so long I feared for you. You said you were just going for a walk to clear your head. Now I see you engaged in some sort of public meeting. Who are all these people? What is their business here at the Abbey in the dark?
I haven't asked them, dear Mina. Perhaps they are drawn here by the same strange power that has impelled me to walk these ruins these last few nights. Perhaps something speaks to them in the way it speaks to me.
Stuff and nonsense, my dear. All that is behind us now. What happened to us then is like an old story in a newspaper. In time it is forgotten and people move on. And if we choose to dwell in the past, then the fault lies with us. Besides, the creature that plagued you is defeated and no more. We saw it destroyed.
You see the lake there?
I do, my dear, but I believe it is a pond built by the monks, so they might have a supply of fresh fish close to the abbey.
It was by just such a lake that a group of writers, artists and poets gathered many years ago, and one dark and stormy night wrote tales of terror for their own amusement.
Yes, my dear, but it was a long time ago. In 1816, in the Lake Geneva was much larger than this pond. The poets Byron and Shelley wrote nothing of note, and it was a woman, Mary Shelley, who wrote the most famous of those tales, Frankenstein. As far as I'm aware, my dear, no one outside the realms of fiction has ever successfully animated a corpse. They were a band of dissolutes trapped by the rain, probably bored and drunk, who let their imaginations run away with them.
What of the doctor? How did he know? How could he know?
Dr. John Polidori wrote a tale called The Vampire, but by all accounts his description of the creature was much closer to his employer Lord Byron, who he hated, than any supernatural creature.
But how did he know? About vampires, I mean. How could he know?
Perhaps he heard the story from someone else, or perhaps it just came out of his drunken imagination, or his jealousy. Why does it matter?
Because it might have been a warning. And if I had known of it, I would never have travelled to Transylvania and risked my life and the lives of my friends by meeting with that fiend.
My dear husband, you must be brave. You endured a terrible ordeal, but you could not have guessed in advance. Dr. Polidori's story was just that, a story. Much good it did him. He died a few years later, depressed by his failure, mired in gambling debts. By his own hand, they say, drinking prussic acid, they say. His story caught the imagination of some, but it was never based on true events.
But how did he know about vampires?
Jonathan, you must calm yourself. You are upsetting these good people. Dr. Polidori's story was fiction. That he hit upon the idea of an immortal creature that survives by drinking blood is pure chance. You must endeavour to forget the past, or you will be trapped by it. Dracula is gone. We saw him turn to dust.
I know, dear wife, but there is something in my blood that tells me we are not safe. I cannot put it into words, but there is some horror still out there, and it is close.
You are upsetting our friends, dear. There is nothing to fear. Come, I will take you home. This way. Good friends, there is nothing further to see here. I suggest you make your way along the pond, on the path there by the wall, and towards the abbey. Good night, and God bless.
I cannot understand why you are here. Have you no notion of your own self-harm and self-care? What are you all doing here? Have you complete no understanding of the dark forces that exist in this world?
As some of you have elected to bring young children and elderly relatives with you, it would appear the answer is obvious. You have no idea of the danger that you are in.
Like us, like you, we were once ignorant of the terrible dangers that we all face, until we read a paper recently published by Professor Abraham Van Helsing. He who is a specialist of tropical diseases and pandemics. And it's through his research and reasoning that we have concluded that all of humanity is in great danger. A danger so strong it could bring about our destruction.
The professor writes, there is, within our understanding of science within the world, an area where we tread less certainly on ground we do not fully understand. This is not new. In the past, we attributed strange powers to new discoveries. We sought the evidence of our eyes to explain what we saw. Strange creatures at sea could become monsters, mermaids, giant creatures that could drag a ship to a watery grave. On land, when we heard tales that defied belief, we made them into legends of gods, mythologies that predated religion. We retained some memory of these strange things as superstitions, but as time passed, these superstitions and legends were lost to us. But they remained out there on the fringes of the known world in the shadows where they waited for the time to be right.
My brothers were brave men. They went to sea, and they knew the risks that all mariners run. The danger of the deep ocean. They travelled from east to west, their ship, the Demeter, carrying whatever cargo that was bid, until that fateful day when their cargo were boxes of soil from the port of Varna. They wrote to me to say they'd be passing through Whitby and asked if I would come and see them. So I travelled here, excitedly, waiting to see my brothers again. We heard news that the Demeter had been spotted, and then the storm broke.
I was in Sweden, waiting for news of my husband, who was first mate on the Demeter. It wasn't until I received a letter containing some clippings from the Whitby Gazette that I heard the terrible news.
The storm came from nowhere, and it was the most violent that anyone could remember. There was a searchlight on the east cliff, helping to guide ships into safety into the harbour. The Demeter was seen in its beam, running ahead of the wind, its sails flapping, and there, tied to its wheel, something that once was human. As the Demeter was thrown on the breach under the east cliff, a giant black dog leapt from the ship and disappeared.
It is here. I know it now. I saw it on the watch last night, tall and thin and ghostly pale like a man. I crept up behind it and I gave it my knife, but my knife passed straight through it, empty as the air. I will find it. It is in the hold, perhaps in one of those boxes. This is from the captain's logbook. He recorded all of my husband's words and actions. What he saw sent them all mad. My husband's last words were, "He is there. I know the secret now. I will find him, and the sea will save me from him, and that is all that is left."
Her husband and my brothers faced such a horrifying terror that they rather leap into the waves than face it. There was something on the Demeter, and after further study of the matter, we believe that that creature, that beast, is here, amongst us now. That is why our advice to you, good people, is look to your own safety. Be on your guard. The danger has not passed. It is here, here with us, amongst us. And we have sworn to destroy it. But you must go now. Go towards the light. Stay together.
But I'm not able to describe it, you see. For after I had seen this view, I explored further. Doors, doors, doors everywhere. And all are locked and bolted. In no place, except by the windows in the castle walls, is there an available exit. The castle is a prison, and I am its prisoner. What I saw was the Count's head coming out from the window. I did not see the face, but I knew the man by the neck and the movement of his back and arms. In any case,
We all love a good story, my friends, especially one that has the power to move us. Whether it is to excite our passions in a romance or stir our sense of adventure, we all love a good tale. We like a moral, don't we? The good end badly, and the unhappy. Oscar Wilde, I believe. An old acquaintance of Mr. Abraham Stoker. Books have been good friends to me and have given me many hours of pleasure. They say that the truth is stranger than fiction. I have always thought that to be true, for there are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, that are dreamt of in your philosophy. Shakespeare, a teller of tales and universal truths. How I wish I could have met him, to have drank in all he knew of his world and tasted it. But regretfully, I was otherwise engaged. It was around that time that the land of my ancestors was locked in a life or death struggle against invaders, in which I played a leading part, a bastion of faith against the heathens. How ironic. But I have had much leisure time to digest Shakespeare's works. I did not know until recently that there is some dispute among scholars as to whether Shakespeare wrote the plays attributed to him. I understand that there is debate that instead of Will Shakespeare, it was in fact a nobleman like myself who wrote them. But he shunned the spotlight and sought instead to stay in the shadows, allowing another to take credit for his works. This, I understand, For we of the old nobility prefer to stay in the shadows. I have great experience of staying in the shadows. So much is spoken about me, but my voice is seldom heard. So often my actions are recalled by others. I have shunned the light for centuries, content to exist on the fringes of society. So why am I here? My friends, it is simple curiosity that brings me to this abbey. I have been before many years ago. I arrived as a stranger, an alien, a foreign body, intent on learning all I could on the ways and customs of this land and its people. I spent a pleasant few weeks in Whitby, as many do, I am sure, before business affairs required me elsewhere. It was always my intention to return to this place of peace, but I was detained unavoidably. They say that to make a bargain for life and death, you have to feed upon your fellows. Imagine having to do that. For some of you, I'm sure that the idea of a vampire is appealing. The power, the strength, the control over nature will be wonderful, would it not? To never have to fear pain or injury or death. To feel the strength of 20 flood your veins as you feed. To hold the power of life and death in your hands. Who could say no? We are all vampires, but in different ways. This abbey was closed down by a king who wanted control over his church so he could marry as he wished. He devoured the wealth of his church, destroyed its buildings, sent monks into oblivion, and it brought him no happiness, only more pain. Was he not a vampire, consuming people to keep himself in power and luxury? Did he not enslave them to his will? What about you? When you look in the mirror, what do you see? A hunter? A predator? Or are you disappointed at what you have become? Do you seek comfort in your own darkness? Do you retreat into a place in your mind where you are immortal, invincible, the ruler of all you survey with special powers to keep others under your dominion? When I look in a mirror, I see nothing. Nothing will come of nothing. Shakespeare again. I remember the day that I had a visitor come all the way from England to my castle. A solicitor's clerk carrying papers. He was a young man. He knew nothing of my world. He had passed through wonders he barely understood. And he was terrified by the natural world. The supernatural. It did not even cross his foolish mind. Welcome to my house. Come freely, go safely, and leave something of the happiness you bring. Count Dracula? I am Dracula. And I bid you welcome, Mr. Harkin, to my house. Come in. The night air is chill, and you must need to eat and rest. Nay, sir, you are my guest. It is late, and my people are not available. Let me see to your comfort myself. You will need, after your long journey, to refresh yourself. I trust you will find all as you wish. When you are ready, come into the other room where your supper has been prepared. I'll pray you be seated and sup as you please. Will I trust excuse me that I do not join you, for I have dined already and I do not sup. Listen to them, the children of the night. What music they make.
by the sign of the cross, holy water, or any other such blessed object.
He cannot abide the smell of garlic, and he must sleep each night before sunrise in a box of soil from his homeland. He is vulnerable when he sleeps and can be destroyed by removing his head and driving a stake through his mortal remains.
Silver bullets will damage him, slow him down, and drain his power.
This much we know, but there must be more. Our plan is simple. Once before, he was drawn to me to make me his victim. I am hoping that my presence here will draw him out again. He must have sensed both Jonathan and I nearby, and he will know he is in danger of being exposed unless he can silence us.
He doesn't know who we are, so we've set a trap with bait to lure him here. He is a creature of instinct, and he believes himself all-powerful. He will come.
And then we can destroy him once and for all.
It will not be easy. I saw him dead once before, and yet somehow he has come back. We must have missed something.
My poor Mina, you must be brave. This is our best, our only chance to destroy him. We will work together. These good people will help. And remember, I have my silver bullets.
We will wait in the shadows. Do not be afraid. We will be nearby.
All you need to do is bring him here. Good luck, and God bless.
You see, when first my husband told me of his nightmare in Castle Dracula, I did not believe him. When I journeyed to the hospital where he lay, I thought he must have had a breakdown. That his stories of a blood-sucking monster in human form were the ravings of a lunatic. But there was something in his manner. You see, the madman is convinced that what he says is true, but my dear Jonathan, he told his story with a sense of disbelief, as though he himself doubted what he was saying. And then, when we returned to England, it became clear that his worst imaginings were real. Count Dracula was real, not some fairy tale to frighten the curious. We fought the creature, we drove him into his lair, and we finished him!
And yet he is still here. I wonder by what means. My dear Miss Mina, my apologies. Mrs. Hart. I hope you are well. How long has it been? I feel that I am meeting with an old friend. How fortunate to stumble across you here. What a pleasant coincidence. But you are alone. Allow me to offer you my arm. It has been a long time since I last saw this symbol. It is discomforting to me. I cannot remember why, as if someone has stood on my grave.
Perhaps this will make you feel more discomfort.
Do not approach him. Let him pass. Make way for him. He is still dangerous.
We will follow him. He must go to his land.
All that die from the preying of the undead become themselves undead and prey on their kind. And so the circle goes on ever widening, like as the ripples from a stone thrown in the water. You would, in time, when you had died, have become a Nosferatu, as they say in Eastern Europe, and would have all time made more of these undeads that have so filled us with horror. The career of this unhappy dear lady is just begun. Those children whose blood she sucks are not, as yet, so much the worse, but if she live on, undead, more and more they lose their blood, and by her power over them they come to her, and so she draw their blood, and with that so wicked mouth. But if she die in truth, then all cease. The tiny wounds of the throat disappear, and they go back to their place unknowing ever of what has been, but of the most blessed of all. When this now undead be made to rest as true dead, then the soul of the poor lady who we love shall again be free. Instead of working wickedness by night, and growing more debased in the assimilating of it by day, she shall take her place with the other angels.
My friends, congratulations! The creature that we feared
The creature that once I thought we had destroyed now once again faces his imminent destruction. It was I, Professor Abraham Van Helsing, who suggested to Jonathan and Mina that they made their way here to Whitby once again for another holiday. I knew from reports I'd read in the newspapers that something strange was happening, that a creature had appeared. I knew that that creature's pride would not be able to resist the presence of its enemies, and so it is here that we will finally face him. Now, all we must do is summon Dracula to this place, and to do this, there is a ceremony, a ritual. Now, I have instructed my friends who have guarded you for the evening in the nature of this ritual, and they have become most apt students. So they will join me shortly, my friends, and we will raise up Dracula, we will bring him to this place, and we will destroy him finally, for all time.
What a performance! A little melodramatic for my taste. Here I am. I stand before you, dragged out of the darkness. So what would you do with me now? Is it to be a stake in the sword, my head struck off, or my body consumed by fire? You think you know me. You know my curse and the powers that come with it, the price to be paid. You know of my weaknesses, that it is possible to kill the undead. My name, Dracula, is a byword for all that is evil in this world. The vampire is like a plague. It must be wiped out with science and technology. It has no place in the modern world. And yet, how many of you do not secretly crave my powers? Even now, in your hearts, when I am completely at your mercy, you are thinking, can he be bargained with? You wonder if I could bestow my gift of eternal life on you, if perhaps there is a way of avoiding all the unpleasantness of having to consume the blood of your friends and families. After all, with power comes responsibility. Here is something for you to ponder. Supposing I was to take a victim every week and by feeding on them, turn them into a vampire like myself. On the first night, there will be two of us, myself and my victim, who must now also feed. The next week, we both feed. Now we are 4, now 8, now 16. After 30 weeks, how many are we? We are 107 million. The chances you are standing next to a vampire is, I would say, very likely. As for you summoning me, I hate to disappoint you, my friends, but it is I who has summoned you. These hunters are not as they appear. They belong to me. Once I had picked off one of their number, it did not take long until they were all my slaves. They have helped me gather you together and move you from place to place, at each point giving you the idea that somehow I was the one being hunted. You follow them blindly, believing that you were going to witness my final destruction. Curiosity got the better of you. You started to show your true colors, your own twisted bloodlust. Just like a vampire, you stalked your quarry. Beautiful, is she not? They will all be forever young, forever in my service. And now, my friends, I must take my leave of you. I have so much to do, but I'm sure my people here will enjoy your company. They will find you most refreshing. And who knows, one night, on a night much like this, you will think of me as you awake from a troubled sleep, and I will be there.